Brian, take it away.
Yep. Um, Good afternoon. Welcome to our 30th office hours presentation. I'm Brian Holtz, and I'm filling in for Marshall today. Um, and with us today is Jeff Drake, and he'll be taking us over to the dark side, showing us how to take advantage of dark mode in FileMaker. So, Jeff, it's all yours.
All righty. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to start off with a very brief demo of what we're talking about when we say dark mode. Most of you probably know about this, but good to have a background of what the heck we're talking about before we get into things. So many years ago, well, not many years ago, but a few years ago, Apple added what's called dark mode to iOS, and they eventually added it to macOS. You can see from my screen, I've got the white menu bar, light colored dock, etc. If I go into system settings, there's an appearance tab. You can set it to light or dark. Obviously, when I set it to dark, it gets a lot darker. And there's also auto, which sets it based on whether or not the sun is up where you are right now. Obviously, it's daytime here, so we are in the light mode. But I'm going to keep it like that for a while. Recently, Microsoft has actually done the same thing. I'm going to pop over to Windows 11 here. And if you go into your color settings, they've actually added light and dark. So you can change the interface there as well. The way FileMaker works with light and dark mode is actually a bit different between macOS and Windows, and we'll cover those differences in a little while. First, I want to go ahead and get started with showing you how FileMaker 2023 works with dark mode. So I'm going to start out using the contacts template from Claris. I've pre-populated this with a bunch of data. Got 1,000 contacts in here, and pretty simple. Names, company, and when you click on the arrow, it goes to the detail view. Now, if we are in light mode, FileMaker's background will be light, as the name implies. If we go to dark mode, it switches over to dark, which has been the case since FileMaker 19. They actually supported it on some level in 19. In 2023, though, they have also set it up so that when you go into File Manage Database, previously this was always white. But in 2023, they've added dark mode support to that as well. So when I go back to Manage Database, we have dark mode in here as well. The problem with this is that even though this is very nice for developers, it doesn't do anything for your end users. You'll notice that even when I switch from light to dark, the interface of my FileMaker solution does not change one bit. So what we need to do is figure out how FileMaker is going to recognize whether we are in light mode or dark mode. And the function that we use for that is called get system appearance. Now, get system appearance has been around for a long time. It actually was in FileMaker 6, maybe even earlier than that. I honestly don't remember. But it hasn't been used very much because, frankly, people didn't use system appearance very much. You'll notice that right now it's saying dark aqua because I am in dark mode. If I go to light, it just says aqua. So obviously, here's where we can figure it out. We can say get system appearance equals dark aqua. Right now it's 0, so we're not in dark mode. We switch to dark mode, it's a 1. But how does that help us with our FileMaker interface? Well, there are a couple of different ways that we can make this work better for us. If we want to support dark mode on a single layout, we can go in here and use conditional formatting. So for example, I can right click, go to conditional formatting, and say that this tab, when get system, you can barely read it. I actually have a plugin that changes the colors, so it's kind of hard to read here. But if get system appearance equals dark aqua, we can change the text color to white. We can change the fill color, well, make it black just to make things easy. And then when we go back into browse mode, you can see it's nice and black. But here's the downside to that. Conditional formatting will override everything. So for example, let's say we are going to create a button. I'll just put a button right here. Doesn't matter. Nice button. And we're going to have this do the single step, which is really not going to affect anything at all because we really don't care. But we're going to set a variable to 1. If I come back in here, I have the button that when you'll notice when I click, I'm not sure if that's very visible to you, but it changes color when I click it. And this comes from the theme. We have this button set to default. We can grab a style. Let's go to minimum. Actually, let's go to round green. That's a good one. And you'll see that there are multiple states for this button. So in the normal state, we have green, and I'll make the window a little bigger. You can see the text is white. If we go to hover, we can make it a different color. Let's just make it red so it's nice and obvious that we've changed things. And pressed, we'll make it a deep blue. And then in focus, we'll just leave it as green for that. So when I go back into, need to move that down a bit, anchor it to the bottom. When we go back into browse mode, when I hover over the button, it turns red. When I press the button, it turns dark blue. But what happens if I put that conditional formatting on it? We're going to get system appearance equals dark aqua. And I'm going to make the fill color, a dark gray. We come back into browse mode, it's dark gray. But when I roll over, when I hover over it, it's dark gray. When I press it, it's dark gray. I'm losing all of my feedback that I've placed on that button because I'm using the conditional formatting, and the conditional formatting overrides everything. It doesn't matter whether I'm hovering over it or clicking it or what. It's still dark aqua. So obviously this is not going to help us very much. And I'm going to go ahead and take the conditional formatting off of this tab because this is really not the best way to do this. The best way to do this is using the themes. Now, if you're not familiar with themes, I just showed that a little bit. But basically what a theme does is when you go into layout mode, you can click on each type of object. For example, here we have a drop-down list. I've got this drop-down list set to default. There's another drop-down list over here that's set to secondary. They're two different things. They look different. This one's white, this one's a little bit off-white. If I go ahead and make this fill secondary red, and then I'll save the changes to the style, then if I click on company and make that fill secondary, it's going to turn red as well. Then if I go to fill secondary and let's change it again, I'll put it back to the off-white. Actually make it a little lighter than that, I think it was. If I save that, it updates the other fill secondary as well. And if I update the theme, then it's going to apply that to every layout in my database that uses that theme. I'm going to go ahead and revert the changes to the theme so everything goes back the way it was. But we're going to take advantage of this behavior because you can create your own themes. So let's go into the File menu. We'll go down to Manage, and we're going to go to Themes. Now, there are a few different ways you can get the themes into your database. You can import them. Or, I guess there's really two different ways. We can duplicate an existing theme. So let's go ahead and duplicate Universal Touch, and we're going to rename it and make it Universal Touch Dark. I'll click OK, and what I'm going to do now is duplicate this layout. Click the duplicate button. Now we have contact details copy. I'm going to get layout setup and make it contact details dark. And here's where our theme is going to come in. Up here on the top where it says theme universal touch, there's a little icon next to that. It says change the theme applied to this layout. So when we click here, it gives us a list of all the themes that are built in, plus the custom theme we just created. Of course, we duplicated it, so it's no different than what we had before. But now we can start making some changes. So I clicked on the top navigation. That's the secondary style. And I'm going to make that the third gray from black. Save changes to style. And you'll notice that the body changes as well because it is based on that same style of secondary. Now I can go into this photo field. Sometimes you might want to just leave it white in a dark mode, but I'm going to make things a little darker just so you can see exactly how this works. We'll make the photo a slightly lighter gray, change this to white, and we'll save the default. And you'll notice there's a lot of stuff that isn't changing because we have all different things on here. We have rectangle, we have an edit box, we have a drop-down list, we have a web viewer. So this is going to take a little work to make all the changes. So I'm just going to step through, going to change this edit box default to that same lighter gray with white text, and then I'll save changes to the current style. All of the edit boxes based on the default style change with it. We'll go to the secondary fill drop-down list, make that even a little lighter, set the text to white, save fill secondary. Now we have our tabs, tab control. Make that maybe a little lighter than that. We'll just go there and we'll keep that text dark. And then we'll also set the inactive tabs to a darker gray so we can tell them apart. Sorry, that's the text. set them to a darker gray, and we'll save the tab style. Basically, you get the idea. Last thing here, we've got a rectangle. We'll go ahead and change that as well. And our pop-up menu, we'll use that same dark gray that we used before. So that's a little darker. Use that one. Save that as default. Save this for knockout. And I'm going to save changes to theme. So anything that I base on Universal Touch Dark can now use these new colors, backgrounds that I've created. And when we go back to browse mode, you'll see that we have a nice dark mode layout. If we switch to the original contact details, it's still the original. So how do we figure out which one we're going to use? Well, that's where our Get System Appearance comes into play. What I'm going to do is add a trigger to the contact details layout and the contact details dark layout. So let's go into the script workspace, and I'm going to create a new script here. Just going to call it contacts light dark. And we're going to start by setting a variable, and we'll say is dark. Get system appearance equals dark aqua. So now the first thing this script does is set is dark to either a 1 if it's dark aqua or 0 if it's not. And we'll say if is dark, then we'll go to layout. GTL is the abbreviation for that. Contact details dark. Else, go to layout. Contact details. Save the script. Close the workspace. And now, when we go into layout mode, we can go into layouts, layout setup, which I have used Mac OS to make Command L for me. And we go into script triggers. On layout, enter. Contacts light dark. Click OK. And we're going to make that browse, find, and preview mode. Then we'll do the same thing with contact details dark. Layouts, layout setup, script triggers, and on layout enter, contacts light dark, find, preview, OK. Save that. I'm going to go back to the list view, which I haven't done a dark mode for, but obviously we can follow the same steps that we used for the details. But I am in dark mode. You can see in system settings, and of course you can tell from the header here, toolbar. But now when I click on this, it takes me right to dark mode because the trigger immediately recognizes that we are in dark aqua and it switches there. If we go back to contacts and I switch to light mode, we click the button and we're in light mode. Very simple. All you need is 2 different themes and that will cover everything. This also works, by the way, on iOS. You can have your light mode and dark mode in your iPhone layouts, your iPad layouts, etc. It works across all Apple products. But there's the catch. Apple products. What happens when we go to Windows? So I'm going to go ahead and close this down in Mac OS and switch over to Windows 11. We've got the same file here. This is actually from my Mac OS desktop. And it's taking a moment to open. Come on. There we go. FileMaker 2023 does not support dark mode quite as well in Windows as in Mac OS. When we go in here and we switch from light mode to dark mode, that's all well and good, but FileMaker looks exactly the same. And then when we click on details, it's still light mode. We've got dark in the web viewer because Microsoft Edge supports dark mode natively, but FileMaker doesn't change the interface at all. So how are we going to get this to work? Well, it turns out that in Windows, dark mode is not supported, but there is another option. Instead of worrying about dark mode, we need to look at contrast themes. Windows has 4 different built-in high contrast themes that make things easier to see. And 3 of those are dark. So if we switch to aquatic, we can apply. Windows asks us to wait for a sec, and now everything is what Windows calls high contrast. So let's go back to FileMaker and see what happens when we open the data viewer and look at get system appearance. We have high contrast black. If we go to desert, I always click on those instead of the menu. High contrast white. Dusk, clicking it again. High contrast number 1. And night sky. High contrast number 2. So obviously what we're looking for here to make it dark is not dark aqua, because that's an Apple specific thing. We are looking for high contrast, and specifically, we want high contrast that does not include the word white. So what I've done is, instead of using get system appearance equals dark aqua, I've created a custom function. And I will go ahead and put this custom function in the chat at the end of the presentation. But my function is dark mode. And is dark mode does exactly what it sounds like. It first checks to see if is dark mode is off. I have that in there as a global variable that I can set to true if I want to just switch everything over to light mode for testing. Otherwise, it looks to see if the word dark is in get system appearance. And if it is, then we're in dark mode, dark aqua. Secondly, if the word white is in the system appearance, then it doesn't activate dark mode. Third, if high contrast is in system appearance, it does activate dark mode. So when we go back here, I'm going to go back into the script workspace and fix that contacts light dark. And instead of using this is dark variable, I'm just going to do is dark mode. And we can get rid of the variable altogether. So now, when I go back here, let's see, we are on desert, so that is not dark mode. I'll actually demo that. It does not go to dark mode if desert is your current high contrast setting. But if, for example, you're using dusk, now we're back into dark mode. So it's a little tricky to get it to work on both platforms, but if that's what your users would like to have as their settings, it works beautifully. So all you have to do is set up the themes. And as I said, I'll place the is dark mode custom function in the chat, and you can turn off the lights when your users want you to. That's it for me, Brian. Back to you.
All
Do we have
right.
any questions?
Yeah. Are there any questions for the group or with the group?
Switch over to the chat.
Oh, that was very cool, Jeff. Especially getting it to work, and look the same in Windows.
The button pressed, I can share my screen again so we can see that. If you go to the system settings, which before Ventura is called system preferences, there is an appearance tab. And actually, let me pop open a screen share to one of my other computers because it has the older Mac OS on it, and I can show you how it looks on that. So on the older Mac OS, you go into System Preferences, and you have all of these icons. You can just do a search if you don't remember where it is, but it's under General. And you have your appearance here. Use dark menu bar and dock. And it darkens it. Whereas in Ventura, the appearance tab actually comes up by default, and you have light, dark, and auto. And you can also change your accent color. So if you like purple better, make everything purple. You like orange, great. Whatever you're up to. I personally like dark mode, so I keep mine in dark mode all the time. But it's been so long since I've seen light mode. It actually is kind of nice. All right, was there another chat?
Yeah. So will the FileMaker file automatically follow the system settings?
Yes, it will, as long as you're using the get system appearance to tell it that that's what you're looking for. Oh, Mike just shared in the chat. There's also a custom keyboard shortcut you can use to toggle dark mode. That's great. Close it down in Windows and I'll open it back up in Mac OS. And I'm actually going to turn off my high contrast in Windows. When I go back in here, I've also given myself a custom keyboard shortcut for custom functions. And let's stick that in the chat. Oh, wow, that comes through as a mess. But it'll work. Just copy and paste that, even though it's messy. It'll look nice. Once again, to get to custom functions, it is in the File menu, Manage, Custom Functions. And if you'd like to add keyboard shortcuts, because I add a lot of keyboard shortcuts to my FileMaker for quick development, that's actually in the system settings. And if you go to App Shortcuts, actually, I guess we might need to just go to Keyboard Shortcuts. Yeah. They have moved it in Ventura It's so easy in the older versions. In the old versions, you just go to keyboard and you have shortcuts and app shortcuts, and you can add anything you want in there. But let's see, where is it hiding here? Keyboard shortcuts is under keyboard, and there you can go down to app shortcuts, and you'll see that I've added quite a few. Standard FileMaker menus, data viewer, value lists, tab order, etc. And of course, you can set them on an application level. So I have a bunch of music shortcuts, a couple for preview, a few for Outlook. So you can set that up however you like. And you'll notice some of these are white because, as I said, I have that plugin changing the colors. Since I usually use dark mode, I've got these in white, but obviously on a white background, that doesn't work too well. Anything else?
Nope, doesn't look like there's any further questions. So I think this session is a wrap. Again, Jeff, thank you for that presentation. It was great.
Very welcome.
And for you participants out there, if there are any other ideas that you have for topics for future office hours, just send us a note at answers@gomainspring.com, and we'll get something put together for an upcoming meeting. So it's ending a little bit early, but hopefully it's a nice day out by you guys, and you can take some time and get outside then. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month for another office hours. Have a good and safe Memorial Day weekend that's coming up, and everybody take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks much.
For coming.